Longtime viewers of mine are probably familiar with all those fucks I don't give about console sales figures. I like keeping an eye on them occasionally because I'm a bit of a stats guy, but I don't do so for the purpose of validating my console purchases. It's pretty much always out of curiosity for me. I only truly begin to give a crap about console sales figures when other people make an unnecessarily big deal out of them, or when people act stupidly over it, which is pretty much routinely on the internet. A solitary day in which idiotic people don't occupy the internet is the same day Nicki Minaj music ascends from suicide-inducing to marginally tolerable. But to be fair, paying attention to sales is not something that's universally illogical and retarded. For example, I genuinely care about software sales because they directly are tied to the success or failure of any given game. If there are specific games you like, it's worthwhile keeping an eye on software sales figures since they will directly or indirectly dictate whether or not you'll see sequels or similar games in the future. From a hardware perspective, while I personally don't care much, I can at least understand paying attention to global sales because they paint the best picture of the state of a console overall. That I can understand. But what I cannot fathom is focusing exclusively on one region that doesn't even constitute the majority of the market. Hence why I simply don't understand people's infatuation with NPD figures. Every second week of the month, the NPD, which is a US-based market research organization, collects and releases data on which companies sold the most consoles in the US within the preceding month. Every month they do this, and gaming websites report on it, the news floods my feed, and I'm left thinking, who actually fucking cares? Evidently, a lot of people do. On both sides of the fictitious console war, people await the announcement of who won the month, even though it doesn't affect you. I very much doubt any of you hold shares in Microsoft and Sony, or are sitting on their boards, in which case you'd have a vested interest in those sales. Being a YouTuber who cups Microsoft's balls doesn't count. This month, the Xbox One was the best-selling console in the US, which was met with a harem of screeching celebration from Xbox fanboys, even though literally every single month of the year since launch, the PS4 has been curb-stomping the Xbox One in global sales and software sales. What is this, the 5th time the Xbox One has come out on top in 3 years in one fucking region, and only when the planets align in terms of games, or they're basically giving them out on the street? In any event, they lose. Outselling the competition in one region while being outsold everywhere else is like a basketball team getting up in the second quarter, but losing by 50 points. Yeah, great, they did well in the second quarter, but they lost anyway, so what does it fucking matter? If there is a silver lining from this month's NPD findings, Xbox fanboys now can't accuse a company that does market research on thousands of products of being biased in favor of Sony. The accusation always blew my mind. It shows you don't even know what the NPD's role is. They're not a gaming market research company. They collect stats on thousands of products. Nobody at the NPD gives a shit about the console war, and they sure as hell aren't going to manipulate their data to make the PS4 look good. They collect data for the purpose of selling it to companies. Unless they want to get sued, they're not going to manipulate their findings for a make-believe console war fought by fucknuts on N4G. Now, of course, to be fair, Sony fanboys have been consistently moronic about NPD findings as well. Not from a statistics perspective, but from a base logical perspective. When Sony fanboys say things like, we won, all I can think is, you are such an idiot. You didn't win dick all. You don't work for Sony. You probably don't own shares in Sony, unless you're really stupid. You aren't a first-party developer. You aren't on Sony's executive board. Your financial standing is not affected by console hardware sales. So why are you getting emotional over it? It's fucking video games. If the NPD publicly released sales figures, I'd pay a little bit more attention. But they don't even do that. You have to pay for that information because the NPD don't collect data for you. They collect data and sell it to businesses. Because in every other industry except for gaming, the consumer doesn't give a shit. If you're just genuinely interested in stat tracking, I don't have an issue with that. I too am a big fan of stats. And that's really the only reason I follow sales. If you're like me in that regard, that's cool. My issue is with the people who have some kind of personal or emotional investment in console hardware sales in one region of the world. It makes no sense to me. The best argument you could make for caring about the sales of particular platforms is that you want to be on the platform that has the greatest number of players for the sake of longevity with regards to multiplayer games or perhaps DLC support. You know, those are understandable concerns, but I highly doubt that's why people are making YouTube videos or hosting 2-hour podcasts every month over this crap. Even when I was a kid, back in a period of my life when fanboyism could be justified because of my immaturity or my inability to buy other platforms, I still didn't care as much about sales as fully grown adults on YouTube right now. I mean, here's a crazy suggestion. Maybe you should spend some time actually playing games. I know, right? Bold recommendation. I feel like I could write a goddamn thesis on the psyche of these idiots online who are getting emotional over the sales figures of inanimate objects manufactured and sold by multi-billion-dollar corporations. I mean, after all, that's not irrational. Shoot me in the fucking neck.